Welcome back to another live episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. And the Dodgers finally did it. They have officially broke Major League Baseball by signing star 23-year-old Japanese phenom Roki Sasaki. I am joined today by my co-host Jacob Brownson, and we're going to go over all the details of what just transpired over the last couple days and then kind of what is next for the Dodgers after this signing. But before we get into all that, let's thank our sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline is the number one sports betting source for the new year. From touchdowns to three-pointers and hat tricks, BetOnline has you covered on every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. And, Jacob, before we get into it, I'm hoping we have a lot of people in the chat today that are going to share their excitement for signing Rōki Sasaki. And that's kind of where we're going to kick off right now. It's something that we've been looking forward to over the last couple months. The last couple days have kind of been full Sasaki mode on our mind. The deal's finally here. It hasn't officially been announced by the team yet, but multiple reporters, multiple outlets, it's pretty much a done deal. And Sasaki himself announced it on Instagram. Before we get into the nitty gritty on everything, raw emotions when you see that they officially signed him.
Um, uh, as happy as I've been in a long time. Obviously, I had a bit of personal stake in it, but just like I've wanted Roki Sasaki for such a long time. It also distracted me from a atrocious business ethics class, so that was good news too. But I did just overwhelming joy. I will remember that for a while.
Yeah, I think my raw emotions when I saw the notification on my phone today, it was kind of a little bit of relief that, he did pick the Dodgers, something that was kind of predicted by most media outlets, by you and I together as well, and pretty much every other Dodgers media outlet. They've all kind of had Sasaki already penciled in to play for the Dodgers and to sign that contract. Over the last couple days, we saw some more teams put their hat in the ring. Obviously, the San Diego Padres, they were the team that was also very heavily invested in trying to bring him in. But then you have the Toronto Blue Jays out of nowhere. And we'll get into it a little bit today as well, where, it seemed like they were making a lot of last-ditch efforts to get Sasaki. They ended up finishing in second place again. Unfortunately, if you're a Blue Jays fan, it's not been the best couple off seasons for you. But yeah, I think I'm excited. I'm relieved. And I just look at this rotation now, and it has a chance to be something very, very special for the upcoming season. When you see Sasaki sign, I know you said you've watched him for a while, but we really got to see him during that WBC. And I kind of put it out on X today. I remember somebody, I wish I could remember who put it out. They said, the Dodgers are going to try to replicate that starting rotation. Well, they got 3 of those 5 starters in that rotation with Yamamoto, Otani, and now Sasaki. I mean, just how rare is that to happen? I'm trying to think in my head, when's the last time an MLB rotation had 2 Japanese stars in it? Now, this has to be the first time ever that there's 3 potentially to be in one rotation. It's like unheard of.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. It's setting a cultural tone in Japan with people watching the Dodgers and watching baseball in general. There's going to be a lot of kids in Japan that grow up and watch the Dodgers and want to be Dodgers when it's their time. It's insane, and these are 3 guys who have top 10 pitcher potential at least. Like it's not just 3 Japanese pitchers. Like these dudes are so good. So it's absolutely amazing for the Dodgers. You consider them, and then you throw Blake Snell in there and Tyler Glass. Now you're looking at one of the best rotations ever. If they stay healthy and do it over a full season.
And before we go into, the signing and what the Dodgers team looks like right now, what it could possibly look like in the next couple days, because I don't believe they're done in free agency or trades. I know you feel that way as well. Let's backtrack a couple hours now. We go back to the beginning of the day in the morning. Kind of shocking report coming out, and it was reported by our guy Francis Romero. He's the guy that's really into the international prospect scene, and he reported shockingly that the San Diego Padres were the first of the three finalists to be out. He heard from multiple insiders, and he ended up being right. It seems like, I would say, the hierarchy went probably Dodgers, Blue Jays, and then the Padres. Were you shocked to see that report this morning? Because when I saw it, I was like, wow, we had so much talk around the Padres being that team that could inevitably steal him from the Dodgers and from Otani and Yamamoto, to just being, not even thought of at the end. Or are you shocked by that report?
I was. I've kind of gotten into a routine of waking up and immediately going over to X and checking to see if anything happened. So within 30 seconds of waking up, that's what I was looking at. So my memory is a little groggy, but I do remember I was very surprised by that. Um, I mean, everyone saw it as Dodgers, Padres, Blue Jays, pretty much. But I think once you see that, you start to think like he's a Dodger, and then things play out how they did, and people started to get worried a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was just shocked to see it just because I thought the Padres, there was a little bit of belief in me where I thought maybe the Padres would just be the team to sign him. Maybe Sasaki was seeing the reports out there on social media. Maybe he wanted to go against the grain and say, you know what, I'm not going to be, pre-penciled in to go sign with the Dodgers and join their, already excellent super team that they've assembled over the past two off seasons. So I thought there was a real chance that he would go to San Diego. I mean, we've talked about it all this week. We've given respect and we've given the credit to the Padres. I mean, they still have a very good team. They have the Yu Darvish connection. They've been scouting him probably just as much or even more than what the Dodgers and Andrew Freeman and then their scouting and everyone within the organization has done. So I mean, they've done their work. They've wanted the guy. They were heavily invested. I mean, we saw the videos on social media. We saw him working out in the Padres gear. A lot of us fans started, hitting the panic button when we saw those images and those videos. But at the end of the day, he still chooses the Dodgers. My biggest whole shock in this whole thing was that the Toronto Blue Jays trying as hard as they did. I mean, I feel like I guess they were trying to swing at probably the last big free agent that they could get this offseason. I know there's a lot of the Pete Alonso smoke going around there, but I'm not sure if that's really something that's going to win over a lot of, the Canadian fans up, north of the border. Blue Jays finishing second and going as hard as they did in this entire sweepstakes, getting the 2 million extra dollars in international pool money. I mean, what are you thinking there?
Yeah. So my first reaction was my interest was peaked. That's for sure. And then I started trying to have some conversations, kind of figure out what the vibe was around that. Reached out to some Blue Jays people, kind of got ghosted, but you don't win them all. But I think a lot of people got a lot more worried than I was necessarily. And we kind of talked about it in our text and stuff like that. I just never was that worried about it. Because it did feel like it felt like the Blue Jays were making that effort. And I know a lot of people were thinking you're gonna see a team trade for money and then they're gonna sign the guy. I didn't necessarily think that's how it was gonna go. And I was under the impression that the team that was signing Sasaki already knew that they were signing Sasaki. That's kind of something that I'd been operating by the last couple of days. Like I figured, based off some conversations and just speculation, that the team who was signing him knew that they were probably signing him. So after the Blue Jays trade for that money, and then you see 5 6 hours without anything happening, I think it definitely made it seem like it was a last effort.
And then Tim in the chat's bringing up a lot of good points right now with the terms of money that are involved. So the reported contract that Sasaki is inevitably going to sign is a $6.5 million signing bonus to ink that contract to come to the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers were only given around $5.5 million in their 2025 international pool money due to a variety of reasons. Being over the CBT the past couple years moves you back a lot of spaces in the draft, but it also affects your ability to spend on international free agents. And the Dodgers have been a repeat offender over the last couple of years. So clearly they were tied for the second lowest. We talked about that before as well. So to sign someone for over $1.5 million than what you had, they had to make some trades. So they did make two trades today. They made one with the Philadelphia Phillies where they gave up. Who did they give up, Jacob?
To the Phillies, it was not Dylan Campbell. He went to Texas, 2023 fourth round pick, straight Jesuit high school from the
Yeah.
Houston area.
Yeah, so that Dylan Campbell,
Dylan
he went to the Phillies for anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million. So that put them in the 5.9 to $6.1 million range. But then a little bit a while ago, it was reported that they also traded another minor league prospect, Lantuga. I don't know how to say these names 100%, but they actually got a decent chunk of change. $1.5 million, it looks like. They only signed him for 700,000 a couple years ago. So that put them above what they need to get Sasaki, but it also put them above to sign some more of these free agents in the international market as well. They're reported to sign not only Sasaki, but 15 more players on the international market. I just feel like people are going to see that and their heads are about to explode.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to how great of a general manager Andrew Friedman is, or president of baseball ops, whatever his official title is, and just the class of the Dodgers organization and the way they operate at such a high level. Um, the No one really considered the possibility that you could go get Sasaki and then also retain the majority of your class. On the other hand, the Blue Jays have to be upset right now. You take on Miles Straw's terrible contract, you get 2 million bonus. The benefit of that 2 million, even if they didn't end up with Sasaki, was they could put it towards some of those Dodgers guys that didn't have anywhere to go anymore. But now they have an extra 2 million for no reason. And the player to be named later, I would imagine, is pretty solid if they're taking Straw's contract and getting money out of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's definitely an interesting trade, and that's what kind of looking back earlier this afternoon, I was like, you're taking on a lot of international money. I thought $2 million to take on Miles Straw's contract, and they've been training with the Guardians a lot this offseason. It's not the first contract they've taken on as well. They took their second baseman Jimenez over as well, so clearly the Blue Jays felt very invested. I think I saw a quote from someone in their front office where they were kind of just express their disappointment in not getting their guy. And we've talked about it a bunch. Everybody's kind of, it's like beating a dead horse at this point. So I guess their last hoorah is maybe Pete Alonso, and then if they don't get them, it's more than likely looking like could be Vlad Jr.'s last year there, Bo Bichette's last year there. So we'll see what the Blue Jays do with all of this. Reverting back to the Dodgers here, like you said, Andrew Freeman, I mean, master class. Not only is he able to execute his plan and getting Sasaki to come here, doesn't have to really break all of the bank. Because that was what my question was, whereas like, are they going to use the entirety of their pool money to just get one player? Because obviously it's hit or miss if any of these minor league, international free agents ever work out. I mean, it's a low risk, high reward type of deal. You sign them for $1 million. A lot of these guys sign for like hundreds of thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars, and then they can end up being superstars, or they can end up being out of the league in a couple of years. Not only do they get Sasaki, but they get a bunch of these other players. Are you surprised that they still had room to spend money and add to their minor league depth? Because at the end of the day, that's the thing that the Dodgers keep doing that's better than most major league teams, is that not only do they provide to the major league club, but they still have a lot of youth in their minor league system that is continuously ranked in the top 5.
I mean, it just didn't even occur to me that it was a possibility that they could get Sasaki and then get those guys. I'm interested in kind of how the negotiations panned out, if they'd already planned on getting more money, or if Sasaki agreed to a number, they were like, okay, cool, we're doing 6.5, and then they started making other deals. I know for a fact the Dodgers have been trying to make trades for international money for multiple days. I think Jack Harris reported that they were kind of looking around, having conversations, seeing what's out there. I heard earlier today, like the last 24 hours or so, they've been doing everything they can to try to put something together. And I felt like that was probably the holdup on Sasaki and all that, is that they needed more money. I think that was pretty clear that Sasaki was going to command a little more than the 5.28 that the Dodgers had, or whatever the exact number was. But back to the point, yeah, I was very surprised. It hadn't even occurred to me that they could do that.
And then this kind of gets us to our next part. And you already see it all in the comments, whether it's on your post, my post, other Dodgers social media posts, ESPN, MLB Network, regardless of where this is being posted now. It seems like a lot of people do hate the Dodgers. They hated the Dodgers for winning the World Series. They hated the Dodgers for deferring most of Shohei Ohtani's contract. Obviously, if you go in the comment section of a lot of these Sasaki posts now, you're going to see a lot of fans that are upset about what happened. There seems to be a real divide between a lot of people in the MLB community, where a lot of people are cheering this move on and what the Dodgers have done. And then there's a other half of the coin where they kind of hate what the Dodgers are doing. I know what your answer is going to be, but are the Dodgers breaking baseball? Are they bad for baseball? Or is this what every team should be doing?
I mean, it's absolutely what every team should be doing. I can understand the sentiment from the smaller market teams that are frustrated with their owners, and they feel like it's not fair to them. Life isn't fair. That's just the way it goes. Your owner can spend money. You're upset that your owner doesn't spend money. And the thing with this, the Sasaki specifically, it's not a financial victory. It's an organizational victory. Everything the Dodgers have done for years has led up to this, not just Otani and Yamamoto and all of that, but being in Japan, talking to those guys. They were in position to get Otani in 2017, bringing Andrew Friedman in and developing their pitching development, and everything, their scouting department, everything they've done has made them the ideal destination for anyone out there. And that's why people come to the Dodgers. You can say they're breaking baseball because they have these resources and all these other things, but having a lot of money doesn't matter if you don't do things the right way and use your money the right way. There's lots of teams with money out there, but not all teams use it properly and have taken the steps that the Dodgers have taken. And I really don't want to hear it for Sasaki, because the Dodgers had less money than 28 other teams. And while they were the favorites the whole time, they still had to sell themselves on being a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's easy to hate. I mean, everybody needs a villain in every sport. I mean, if you look in the NFL right now, it's clearly the Kansas City Chiefs. Before that, it was the New England Patriots. You look in basketball, it was, the Miami Heat, the Golden State Warriors, the LA Lakers when they were in their title window. Every sport has a villain, and the Dodgers are just in that era right now. This is their villain arc, as people like to say. And it's because, if you look over the last 13 years, I mean, it's just filled with success. Tons of division crowns, multiple World Series, league championship appearances, ability to spend money, invest in the team, and reward the fans. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what every, franchise aims to be and hopes to be. And I'm glad a team like the Dodgers, for the amount of money that they do make, do invest it to their club, do invest it into the stadium, do invest it into the community and everything, because I would much rather them spend the money than keep the money and just continue to grow their personal wealth like a lot of these other major league franchises do. There is not a single team in Major League Baseball that is valued under $1 billion anymore. Every team is worth over $1 billion. The Dodgers happen to be one of the more successful ones. They're number two in baseball, but not behind the Yankees. And I wrote it, on Dodgers Beat as well, where it's like a couple months back when the same argument came up, and it's like, no, the way you make money in baseball is if you win, and the way you make money in general in sports is if you win. I mean, if you look at sports valued franchises from 20 years ago, you look at the Golden State Warriors, the New England Patriots, and so on. They've either doubled, tripled, or quadrupled their value because what do they all have in common? Multiple championships, and they're still successful. Albeit the Patriots aren't right now, but they're still one of the most valuable franchises in football because of the 6 Super Bowls that they got, in the past 20 years. The Dodgers are doing that right now, and they've kind of embarked on this journey since the team was sold in 2012. Once they got the new ownership in, it's been a slow transition. They brought in some players to get the fans back and invested because the thing with me and you, Jacob, is that we didn't really have to live or grow up in the dark era of Dodgers baseball, but a lot of other fans did, and it really wasn't the best. I mean, if you look at what they had going on before, the old ownership and kind of the penny pinching tactics that they used to use the team for their personal gain, just wasn't a fun time to be a Dodgers fan. And this isn't going to go on forever. I mean, it could. I mean, they have a lot of youthful players in the pipeline that are ready to come up. They could definitely trade a lot of those guys to continue bringing in more and more players and more talent. And I would say as long as Andrew Freeman and this current ownership is running the team, probably going to say their window is never closing because they just seem to be creative year in and year out. But to say they're breaking baseball, I mean, there's just so much parity in this sport right now. And John Boy Media, he put out a tweet about it earlier. And I think it really exemplifies like you can still, I guess you can be frustrated, but to say it's ruining baseball is not true. I mean, 22 different teams have played in the championship series over the last 10 seasons. 8 different teams have won the World Series in the last 10 seasons, and there's just parity. I mean, we're coming off 2 years ago. The World Series was the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks. You're talking about two very different market teams. Like the Rangers, yes, they've spent money, but they're not the biggest market. And we know what type of market the Diamondbacks are in. They barely sell out their own crowd, even when they were in the World Series. So to say it's a bad thing for baseball, I think the Dodgers are doing the opposite. I think they're bringing more attention. I mean, we got what divisional series weekend for the NFL right now. People should be getting excited for that. You know what people are talking about? Talking about the Dodgers right now. They're talking about what they're doing in baseball.
And people seem to forget that the Dodgers spending money makes the A's money. It makes the White Sox money through revenue sharing and all of that stuff. They get those checks. They get those revenue sharing checks and they don't use them. Now the A's are starting to because they're facing a potential lawsuit or whatever that situation is, but or civil suit with the Players Association, whatever it is, they're getting money from the Dodgers spending money. Those owners are making a positive every year. So you can be mad at your own owner, but you can't say the Dodgers are ruining baseball. There's too much parity in baseball. The Dodgers win 100 games every season anyways. The only difference is maybe they'll have another starter in the playoffs. It's not this huge issue. I mean, 2 years ago, it was the Dodgers can't win. They choke in the playoffs every year. Now it's the Dodgers are ruining baseball. I don't understand how that happens. And if the Dodgers lose in the playoffs next year, people won't be saying that the Dodgers are ruining baseball. They'll be saying the Dodgers are chokers. So it's just a back and forth seesaw of stupidity, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know what changed in the 2 years. Last offseason, last winter, it was like, oh, they can spend all this money and they're still going to lose in the first round. You win one World Series with a limp of a starting rotation. You start signing some depth guys. You start bringing in some more superstars. And apparently the league's broken right now. And that kind of goes with the whole international signing aspect of Roki Sasaki. So former general manager Jim Bowden was on foul territory shortly after the deal broke. We have the clip. I'll have Roger pull up behind the scenes. Can we pull that clip up so we can digest all of this? Is Roger in this room?
I think you're going to find that there's going to be multiple teams that are going to ask the commissioner's office to investigate this particular signing, because I can tell you there were several front offices that believed there was a pre-cut deal between the Los Angeles Dodgers and Rōki Sasaki before this process started and before the window came where you're allowed to negotiate with the player. This was, of course, denied by his camp. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But, it was denied to such an extent that it makes you scratch your head a little bit. And what I mean by that is, we were told that, probably a small market would make sense because of the trouble he had with the media over in Japan. We were told that endorsements played a big role. But, Los Angeles really wouldn't work because you'd be in the shadow of Ohtani and Yamamoto. I mean, there were all these reasons to kind of defend on why there wasn't a pre-cut deal, which works as long as you don't end up signing with the Dodgers. But look, this ended up exactly where almost every front office told me he was going to end up. They all thought it was a done deal before the process started. And so, yeah, I'm sitting here at the end kind of scratching my head and then really believing that this will be investigated by the commissioner's office at some point.
All right. So fate first, what a sweater. That was my first thing when I looked at the clip.
Oh
I
boy.
don't know. I'm not a fashion guy, but very bold choice
Neither is
Jim.
Jim. Jim's not a fashion guy either.
So looking at everything that he just said there's a couple inaccuracies that we'll get over with, but just raw reaction to kind of what he's feeling right now. Is it accurate? Is it just? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I just I laughed when I first heard it. First of all, he contradicts things he's said throughout the entire thing. Like he says that everyone in baseball was telling him he was a Dodger, but wasn't Jim the first guy to say that there's no way he's going to the Dodgers, and it's like 90% Padres, so that doesn't make sense. He acts like because Sasaki's behind Yamamoto and Ohtani, he can't make endorsement money. Guess that is so marketable in Japan. He can make so much money in Japan off the big three. All three of those guys are going to make more money than they were before because they can market as a big three, like Bosch, Wade, and LeBron in Miami. They're going to be everywhere in Japan. It's such a stupid statement to put it bluntly. It's ridiculous. Jim was wrong about his prediction, and he's claiming foul play, like his son was just murdered. It's weird.
Yeah, and that was something that we discussed throughout this entire week. We talked about, the idea of, off-field endorsements for Sasaki compared to, elsewhere where one in the city of Los Angeles, you can make anything happen. And it's the prime place to be, especially if you're a player that just wants to make money off of endorsements, like he will have to for at least the first 3 to 4 years of his contract until he starts, getting in deeper into the arbitration process and starts making more money. But other than that, the ability to market to the entire country of Japan to be on one baseball team just makes way more sense than being on the Padres playing against, in the same division against Ohtani every single year. That didn't make sense. I could see the feel for the New York teams where he did pitch that, earlier in the offseason where he said I think his landing spot was the Yankees because Tanaka was his favorite pitcher growing up, and that's where he played there. I guess if you want to put 2 and 2 together, he could end up there. But yeah, I don't know. He was completely off base. And then he also was just wrong about where he said that the league's going to investigate it, because guess what? Bob Nightingale posted an article shortly after this. The league already did investigate it. They said there was no foul play with the Dodgers' potential handshake agreement. And here's the thing, and this is something if you cover baseball very in depth right now, handshake agreements happen all the time with international signees. A lot of these guys are already penciled in to sign. They just have to wait for the period to open. That's why everybody signs on the first day. It's very similar to the NBA free agency where everybody knows where they're going to go. And as soon as it opens up, that's when the reporters start flying out there. That's how the international free agency goes in MLB. And that's kind of been, the behind the scenes agreement between all organizations, owners, and the executives. It just happens to be when the Dodgers do it with one of the best Japanese players. You could probably say probably the best pitching prospect since Paul Skeens of last year. And now it's an issue. And Jim Bowden's also the type of guy where there's a reason he's not in baseball anymore. I mean, just look up 2009 resigned due to federal investigation for skimming Latin American players of their international bonuses. He resigned from the Nationals there. He was a mediocre GM. There's a reason why he's on foul territory right now talking about this and not actually signing these players for a current team today.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's acting like handshake deals don't happen all the time is just it's intentional ignorance trying to go viral. Like I guess that's what he's trying to do cuz I mean, Jim knows better than that. He knows it happens. Francis Romero had a day on the 15th cuz all of those guys had already agreed to all of those deals, maybe even a year ago. Even if that was the case and the Dodgers already had a deal with Sasaki, which pretty clearly wasn't the case, why are we not outraged about all of the handshake deals? Why? Because we want to talk about the one that everyone's talking about and will get the most clicks. It's really weird. It's unvalid. It's just, it's ridiculous.
It's kind of ignorant in a way to kind of make such an accusation, right off the bat when he signs. Like sometimes a player's just destined for a team, and if all along Sasaki wanted to go to the Dodgers and he had free range to make that happen, I don't see why there's an issue. He still did his due diligence. There's a reason why the process still took all the way up until when it did. Yes, there was the posting and then he wasn't eligible to sign until the new, signing period opened up, but he still gave it a couple days after that. He visited every single facility. He took back the information. I mean, for God's sake, on his Instagram post, he said it was a very difficult decision or a tough decision. He still ended up choosing the Dodgers because at the end of the day, it's kind of like what everybody that is either following the Dodgers or within the Dodgers organization, they know that they have the best team on the field to offer, behind the scenes in terms of development, training staff, all that. I know you can criticize them for the arm and elbow injuries, like I have seen on all my mentions about it, but it's a league-wide thing. It's not just a Dodgers thing. And the Dodgers, despite not having, a top 10 Cy Young finisher over the last couple years, are still one of the leaders in advanced pitching metrics. And there's a reason for that. It's because they develop into it, they research into it, and they're very creative in all the methods they do when they bring up these minor league players. And that's the next step for Sasaki. I mean, if you look at this rotation right now, clearly they're going to go with the sixth man this upcoming season. I know we've alluded to it. They haven't outright confirmed it. But I mean, if you look on their, Fangraphs page right now, you got Blake Snell, you got Yamamoto, Glasnow, Gonsolin, Sasaki, May. They're probably going to re-sign Kershaw. They could potentially bring in, Bobby Miller to the fold, Landon Knack in there as well. I mean, honestly, you could say they have like a 10-man rotation. That's what they're going to do. They're going to attack you with depth next season, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of bodies and a lot of optionable bodies too. So I think you're going to see guys get some guys 6 days off in between starts, do the full week schedule, use off days and call people up to make spot starts. I think that'll be very common. There's just too many question marks in that rotation. I mean, Sasaki's never thrown more than 140 innings, professionally at least. So there's definitely some question marks, and the Dodgers will 100% utilize a six-man rotation to get those guys some rest.
And that gets us to our next part here where people are already asking, what are the next steps in the Dodgers offseason? I mean, there's a couple weeks until pitchers and catchers report, but, Showtime LA in the chat, Jacob, Tanner Scott What are the likelihood that the Dodgers end up getting this guy? They've been connected to him all offseason. The Mets are signing different relievers. The Cubs, they're usually reluctant to give multi-year offers to relief pitchers. I put it out on X today. It just seems like the market is just going to let this guy fall in the Dodgers' lap. Is that the next move the Dodgers are going to do? And do they do anything else?
The Dodgers are going to do their due diligence on Tanner Scott. I know he's asking for $80 million. I have a very hard time seeing the Dodgers get to 80. I think there's a chance his market sinks. I think the Dodgers are one of the favorites. The Mets were up there. You saw them go give 22 to AJ Minter today. That could be a sign with them going and getting a lefty while Scott's still out there. They're going to do their due diligence. They've already had conversations, I believe, with Scott. On January 17th, they've definitely had at least a conversation with Scott. They're willing to spend some money. I don't know if they're going to get to 80.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they do. I mean, they haven't given out a contract that large to a relief pitcher since Kenley Jansen way back in 2016. And that was just for a full bona fide closer that was a franchise legend at the time. So to bring Scott in for that asking price, I mean, they didn't do it with Hader last year. I don't think they would do it with Scott this year. But if they can get him to a deal that they're comfortable with, and if his market does collapse, which kind of looks like it's folding in around him, they could get him for maybe a 2 or 3 year deal, decent AAV, and then you plug him in there. You got a really strong, probably the best left-handed pitcher in the bullpen market right now, and would be another added weapon. It would definitely make a lot of fans around the league cry if they could add this guy. But then the positions player side, I know a lot of people want Kike Hernandez back on this team. Are you in that boat as well?
Yeah, yeah. I think now this is with absolutely no knowledge, no conversations, but I think they're going to try to bring Kike back. If they do, it'll be closer to spring training like last offseason. And I think if you bring Kike back, you have to make trades. I think there's already going to be some trades we see. I don't know exactly what they're going to be or who's going to go, but if you bring Kike back, there's another spot you have to get rid of. So I'm fascinated to see how that plays out because you have the obvious answer would be Chris Taylor until you see that he's making $13 million this year, and there's going to be a complication there. But I do think they bring Kike back, and if they do bring Kike back, they're going to have to trade someone.
And, this is something I'm definitely going to write about on DodgersBeat.com. And looking at the 40-man roster, I kind of did a dive on this on my latest Dodgers Notes article, where if you look at the 40-man, it's currently at 39. Technically, they don't have to add Sasaki because he's technically a minor league free agent. So he doesn't even have to be added officially to the 40-man roster until he, makes his first start, basically. So the Dodgers do have some flexibility that way. They're currently at 39. Any other player they sign on a major league contract would obviously make it 40. So they got one spot to play with. They definitely have a lot of pieces to trade if they are willing to go that route. I mean, if you look at their rotation, like I said, they got like 10 arms there. There's a lot of teams that could use one or two. A lot of teams could use a Dustin May or a Tony Gonsolin. The Dodgers may have the luxury there, or maybe they really just want to. They've seen the problem that they've had the last 2 years. Maybe they want to keep those starters in case if anything, goes sideways. Position players, they also have a plethora of guys in the minor leagues and the major leagues. I know you mentioned Chris Taylor's a guy that we would definitely like to get rid of just because of the production and the money he's making just really isn't there. But I expect Kike to come back. I expect it to be when the 60-day IL opens up. That way they get more flexibility with the 40-man roster when you're going to have, multiple guys go on the 60-day IL and off the 40-man, like a River Ryan, like a Emmett Sheehan possibly, and so on. So we'll see what happens there. Other than that, I mean, Sasaki's a Dodger. I mean, how hyped can you be for that?
I mean, unbelievably excited. Everything else aside, I'm sure most people here know that things have happened on Twitter, all that, X, whatever. All of that aside, I'm so excited to see Roki Sasaki as a Dodger.
Yeah, and then before we get out of here today, we do have a couple announcements. So the first thing is we've been kind of heavily going back and forth with some Dodgers representatives. I know when Teoscar Hernandez had his press conference when he announced that he re-signed with the Dodgers, Roger behind the scenes asked Dodgers reps when the Dodger Fest was going to be happening. They confirmed that it would be sometime in February. Well, we got our confirmation today. And we posted it on Dodgers Beat on our social media pages, so you can check it out there. It is happening on February 1st, and it will be at Dodger Stadium. I don't think it's still going to be inside. I know a couple years ago they did it in the parking lot. I broke that down in my article on DodgersBeat.com. So I think you're probably going to see a similar situation with all the construction going on. But who knows? I mean, the stadium has to be ready, in the next month or two, because they're going to be playing actual major league games there in March. So maybe they, put the pedal on the metal to the construction, given all the situation and everything with the fires going on in LA right now. But that's the big one right there. And then the another one. So I know if you guys have been subscribed to the channel, you see that we have this version of the Bleed Los podcast where, it's the English version. We also have the Spanish version, but we are also actually adding a Japanese version. The first episode will get posted, I believe, tomorrow. So for all of our Japanese fans out there, if you're looking to add another podcast to your list, be sure to subscribe, like the channel, and check out that episode that will be dropping sometime tomorrow. It's big. I feel like it's different. You don't see that with other Dodgers media pages right now. To have 3 languages for the podcast to kind of broaden our audience there. I imagine with the recent Sasaki news, the Japanese one's probably going to blow up, right, Jacob?
Yeah, I would imagine. Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's a good day to be a Dodger fan. They get the guy that they've been wanting all offseason. They add it to what's already been like a great offseason. You brought back Teoscar Hernandez. You brought back Blake. You brought in Blake Snell, Michael Conforto. I mean, I feel like he's kind of an afterthought right now because of how far back it happened. But this team is deep, and they're poised to go on possibly being the first back-to-back champion in almost 20 years, or over 20 years now, since the 99 and 2000 Yankees. Any other closing statements before we get out of here?
Not really. Just all of this has been a blast. I'm having a great time and can't wait to keep going. Look forward to it.
Yeah, so that'll be it for this episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. Like I said, for all of our new listeners, be sure to drop us a like and a subscription. It means a lot, it helps us out, helps us grow the channel, and we will see you for the next one. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online. We'll see you next time.